Story 1. The three people I heard anything from regarding the subject. The first did not want to talk about it. The second said, I do not know, we will see. And the third said, just put Vance in. So, from a very narrow sample pool, I would say they know how it looks even if they will not admit it. Story 2. My family always handles political matters by only discussing topics they like or believe they can win a debate about. If you bring up anything else, it causes issues. I am starting to think I am losing my mind. Story 3. Heard one of my Make America Great Again uncles claim that it was actually Barack Obama who is listed in the files, but Donald Trump was trying to preserve the dignity of the presidency by not releasing them. He should be thanking him. Not sure why he didn't say Bill Clinton, but it is not my conspiracy. Story 4. The only person I know in that camp is legitimately upset over it, so that's good. However, it is worth mentioning that the outrage is very much focused on the notion that he is breaking campaign promises by not releasing it, and that he is trying to manipulate people by pretending it is strange that they are interested in it. There is nothing about how heavily he has been implicated as part of the problem. That is something I have seen often when I have observed conservative spaces. There is legitimate outrage, but many people are avoiding the obvious. You can practically feel an unspoken agreement to express grievances because, of course, I can criticize him. I am not a follower. However, they avoid acknowledging the main issue, since doing so would set in motion something indefensible. They can no longer remain willfully ignorant while he advances our problems. Story 5. I was told to leave him alone and let them have their 4 years because they did not criticize Biden this harshly. It is unfair to these people. Story 6. My mom has shifted her attention from supporting Donald Trump to focusing on some kind of Islamic invasion of America. I do not even know what is wrong with her anymore. Story 7. Most of them are desperately trying to ignore the issue. A few agree that the list should be released and proven pedophiles should be imprisoned, regardless of political party. There are also some who are confused because it is not an election year and they have already distanced themselves from the matter. Story 8. We were tricked, but so were you about Harris. I am not going to spend any time with Aunt Sherry soon. Story 9. I was a contestant in the Teen United States of America pageant. I have tried to share my experience. I still have family members who tell me to stop being dramatic. They say I am upset because I am too woke and anti-American. They tell me that I embarrass them on social media. I, of course, tell them to get lost. Then they say that the language I use is unbecoming of a lady. I am beyond trying to please a group of uneducated, brainwashed people. Now, I am no longer allowed at family functions because they blame me. They can still go away. Story 10. You cannot talk to Make America Great Again people. Fox News has done to our parents' generation what they thought video games would do to us. Story 11. My dad in the hospital has been watching a lot of Fox News the last few days. He couldn't wait to tell me the good news about proof of Russian interference in the 2016 election. Naturally, I asked about the Epstein issue. He didn't want to talk anymore, and we quietly watched a baseball game together. I know my dad. He married a first-generation daughter of an undocumented immigrant. He would protect you if ever put in that situation, but he is clearly influenced into thinking Donald Trump is good for America. It hurts, not gonna lie. Story 12. Had lunch with my mom, and her Trump-supporting friend showed up. I asked if she had seen that the Republicans just voted to protect pedophiles, then voted to end the session so they did not have to vote to protect Trump from the Epstein list again. Her reply? She asked how I saw it. I let her know I saw it on C-SPAN and in every news outlet. Then she said, "You must not work hard enough if I have that much time to worry about such things." That did not fly. I ended the conversation with, "Only an enabler of child rape would say such a thing. You are seriously saying I need to bury my head in the sand." She is the same age as Trump and was married to a pastor. I bet she protected his indiscretions as well. Story 13. I limit my interactions as much as possible, but their brains have atrophied to the point where I do not think even a video of him assaulting a child would sway them. Story 14. A person I know who is a supporter but cannot vote says that he is still better than a Democratic president. He does not really care about the Trump scandals, including this one. I choose not to talk about this at all because clearly they are being delusional. Story 15. The same way they did when they discovered my grandparents were child predators. They are ignoring the situation and pretending it is not happening. Story 16. I try to avoid asking my dad anything about Donald Trump or the government, but based on what I know about him, he probably does not care and is still as taken as ever with Donald Trump. For an idea of my dad's absolute fanaticism, the man has a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump in his living room that he decorates for various occasions. Story 17. I am with my dedicated Donald Trump supporting parents this week. My father was screaming last night about how they are going to lock up Barack Obama for interfering in the election by orchestrating the Steele dossier. These people are misguided and being influenced by completely bad faith actors. They are not to be trusted or listened to. Story 18. I realized long ago that those people live in a fantasy world of their own design. I cut them off and have no interest in revisiting their unreal world or hearing their opinions on anything. I cannot take them seriously. Story 19. Epstein. Who is this Epstein person? Now let me tell you about this automatic pen that Joe Biden used to ruin the economy. Story 20. It is wild how the goalposts keep moving with these mental gymnastics. First, it is fake news. Now, it is actually a noble cover-up. My father just changes the subject to Hunter Biden's laptop like clockwork. At this point, I have accepted that facts bounce off them like rubber bullets. Story 21. We talk, but we do not talk about politics, so who knows what is going on inside there. Based on past interactions, I would imagine it is a lot of indifference, just like everyone's most important issue became indifference when confronted with the facts, then returned to whatever source misled them in the first place. Indifference. Story 22. If Donald Trump was involved, Joe Biden would have released it. Then ignore all the evidence like a devoted follower. Story 23. My in-laws hold racist views. This is about cultural conflicts and the idea of restoring America to a predominantly white population. They do not care who is included on the list. Story 24. My favorite of the Make America Great Again copium was something along the lines of, President Donald Trump realized that if he released the file, the impact would be so great it would destroy Western economies and political systems and would only help China, so he decided against releasing it. Story 25. I do not talk to them because they are dangerous and would be okay with immigration and customs enforcement breaking down my door and sending me to El Salvador to die. Story 26. We no longer speak to those family members. They are now openly racist, homophobic, and horrible. I do not care what they think. Story 27. No idea. I have not spoken to them in years. I grew up as the liberal punching bag in my Republican family. Donald Trump made being around them unbearable. I stopped coming around after my mother died. Story 28. It does not appear in any of the news they watch. I have listened in. When Donald Trump reneged on his promise to release the Epstein Files, they were watching news about some strange Barack Obama conspiracy. Yesterday, they watched news about Medicaid fraud, among other things. It was quite disturbing because it was obvious propaganda. They found a few instances of fraud in Ohio and made it very easy for listeners to infer that the entire Medicaid budget for Ohio was lost due to fraud. Feeding information to the right-wing propaganda machine tends to be the first step the Make America Great Again movement takes before action, so I worry budget cut attacks on Medicaid will be relentless until they finally get rid of it, probably before the midterm elections. My father also watches war news constantly, but it has a heavy Israeli bias in the Middle East and a Russian bias in Ukraine. That is his main focus. Story 29. Not me, but a friend of mine said when he brought up the Epstein Files to his Make America Great Again father, he responded with, "Who cares? That was like 5 years ago. No one is talking about it anymore." That friend admitted he is probably going no contact with his father. Story 30. I do not talk to them about politics. I have explicitly communicated that I will not engage in that conversation. The lack of logic angers me. My unwillingness to engage almost makes me equal to them in some ways, but I cannot. The loop of imagination they go through and the lack of accountability they exhibit is infuriating. Story 31. The few people I know, including a neighbor and a couple of coworkers, do not care as long as their stock portfolios are positive. They earned a lot of money in the market during the last administration, but somehow they are attributing it to the Republican Party. It is all about money, racism, and transphobia. They do not care because it does not impact them directly. For example, Epstein is dead, photos can be doctored, and who cares because I do not have teenage daughters. The entire situation makes me ill. I do not have teenage daughters either, but I still feel for the victims because they are being victimized a second time. Story 32. Apparently, Donald Trump has done so much good for the world that he is allowed to harm children occasionally. I cannot stand these people. They are barely even human. Story 33. They are doing what they always do, turning their attention towards Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden at the behest of the current administration and its allies in the media. They are taking the bait because it is a great opportunity for them to distract themselves from the actual controversy implicating their beloved president in heinous crimes. Story 34. My father-in-law is 82, a veteran from Alabama, and completely wrapped up in Trump. There is no reasoning with him. He has bought into all the scams, including those ridiculous Trump Bibles. A few weeks ago, I asked him a simple question. If you care about your family, why not vote for candidates who actually help them instead of backing a convicted rapist who is gaming the system for himself? He flat out said he would never vote Democrat, that it is all lies. So I kicked him out and told him straight. If you do not care about your family's future, then you have no place here. I caught some slack for it, but I am letting him come back around now. He has had his time in the corner, and he knows exactly where we stand. All his kids and even a few siblings were there that day, and none of them could believe how cold he was about it all. Story 35. One friend is trying to argue that there probably never were any Epstein Files and that Donald Trump never promised anything himself. It was all his cabinet and handlers. Another person has started saying things like, even if everything the Democrats say is true, it is still worth it to have him dismantle our crooked government. I have heard a couple of people say even worse. The consistent trend seems to be starting with the decision that Donald Trump is right and then justifying it afterward. Story 36. Cut all Donald Trump supporting friends and family out of my life when he got reelected. Once it became a moral choice rather than a political one, and some still chose him, I knew they did not belong in my life. Story 37. I have stopped asking because their escalation of the level of nonsense they are willing to defend continues to increase. At this extreme level of corruption, I simply do not want to hear any more excuses or defenses of it. Story 38. A friend of mine has been really in denial about everything, not just the Epstein situation. He says that if Donald Trump is guilty, he should face consequences. However, when presented with evidence of his association with Jeffrey Epstein and his previous unacceptable behavior, all he says is Teflon Don. I have seen others mention this before, but it seems like he has a strong dislike for people who are different and does not really care if Donald Trump is as bad as alleged, as long as he harms those people he dislikes. This is really strange because before I found out he strongly supported Donald Trump, I thought he was a pretty solid person. Story 39. I couldn't tell you. I have not spoken to those people since last November. They got one more chance and made their choice. My life is richer and more fulfilling after cutting them out. Story 40. They do not care. They are blissfully ignorant and think the sun shines out of the man's ass. It is the most infuriating thing I have ever experienced. Story 41. The ones I know are not posting anything about it. They are ignoring the Epstein issue, and some are posting other things he does. Immigration was the last topic. These are the same people who were so outspoken about the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community targeting their children and immigrants, taking taxpayer money and jobs, when one of them is what they themselves would call an anchor baby. Their mother literally crossed over to the United States 4 to 6 months pregnant. This person is Hispanic or Latino. They are my relatives, unfortunately, and I can't believe they are that willfully ignorant. I hate it, you guys. Story 42. My mom supports the Make America Great Again movement but is also deeply influenced by conspiracy theories. She believes that Donald J. Trump is an undercover savior delivering us from a secret government. This weekend, she kept saying, I will find out soon enough that we are living under a military operation, and this is just the beginning. She said I should be hopeful for my daughter's future because everything will be better in about 5 years. However, she never explains exactly what she knows, just vague and cryptic statements. This weekend was the first time I had spoken with her about this in a long time, and the story remains the same. She has also recently been interested in weather warfare and related misinformation. Essentially, she is too far gone for any of these concerns to matter to her. It is the saddest and most distressing thing I have ever witnessed, and there is nothing I can say or do to fix it. Story 43. My mom called me last night and said I was right about Donald Trump. I am still dissociating in bed because of this. It has been a long decade trying to get through to her. Story 44. Like the vast majority of members of the Republican Party, they make unfounded excuses to defend him because they view Donald Trump as infallible. Story 45. My brother has stated the following. It is fake, and because it is used for blackmail, the proof of what Donald Trump did does not matter. They do not seem to care, but they talk about it a lot and the reasons are constantly evolving. They take the next excuse whether it contradicts previous ones or not. They just want to have an excuse so they can continue to hold on to the lie. Story 46. I don't know. My sibling's spouse sent a nasty email to the rest of the immediate left-leaning family a month or two ago saying that politics are not allowed, so we have avoided the topic. I will be seeing them next week at a family get-together, and I am curious if there will be politics or not, as the extended family and I are quite political, vocal about our opinions, and not supporters of Donald Trump. Story 47. Nothing dissuades hardcore Donald Trump supporters. It does not matter what he says or does. Donald Trump loves the uneducated, and the uneducated love him. Story 48. Radio silence. The last 5 years it has been constant, now just quiet. This is coming from my cousin who firmly believed in the Pizzagate conspiracy. All I can say is that it is humbling to know how baseline stupid my familial gene pool is. Story 49. Would not know. I cut them off last year. No energy for bad faith, narcissistic, rage-baiting, contrarian individuals. Story 50. I do not watch the mainstream media. We all know who controls it. He then asks for money because he cannot afford the gas to drive home. Story 51. I do not know. I no longer talk to them. They have my contact information if they ever want to reach out and apologize. Story 52. Zero comments or posts about it. After seeing posts every day about Joe Biden, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and Federal Emergency Management Agency crisis. Strangely, no posts about evil or devil liberals. It is exhausting, to be honest. That is why I have removed many high school friends and stopped talking to family. Nothing about protect the children anymore. Story 53. They were furious about it until their supreme leader spoke, and now they do not care about old news anymore. It is absolutely insane how this person has the puppets operating. Story 54. Many people have stopped discussing politics. You can see the second-guessing happening even if they do not say it aloud. This is mostly because they know if they show any support now and evidence proves that Donald Trump is a pedophile, they will never be able to forget that they supported a pedophile. Story 55. Trump supporter here. We are not happy about the Epstein situation. We are upset in reality. Regardless of who is on the list, Trump, Republicans, Democrats, allies, enemies, royalty, celebrities, it needs to be released and all should be prosecuted. I am in favor of capital punishment for all, frankly. Children should be protected and defended at all costs. I do not care if it leads to the downfall of those we voted for. Not all of us are blindly following or cult members, much like I do not believe those on the other side of the aisle are either. Story 56. Would not know. Stop talking to them after they blatantly denied Elon Musk's Roman salute in January. My father and I went to Dachau together 14 years ago. We stood in the gas chambers together, and he still wants to argue with me about this. Story 57. Some have come to their senses. Others are trying to understand but cannot make the leap. I am waiting to engage with others where I can corner them into panic mode and catch them saying really foolish things that they have to live with. I honestly spend too much mental bandwidth having imaginary debates that never materialize. It is not healthy, but I need to find a way to productively contribute to slowing the collapse of our culture. Story 58. I hope one day the majority of people reject the Make America Great Again movement. I do not know how long it will take, but it has to happen at some point. This is beyond exhausting. Story 59. My family genuinely believes that if Donald Trump were involved in the Jeffrey Epstein Files, the information would have been released before the 2024 election. Story 60. It's bad, but Democrats are worse, is what I've heard from them literally every time Donald Trump does something outrageous. Mind you, whenever I ask how they're worse, they just bring up all that wokeness nonsense. Story 61. Deflecting just like the leader. My sister is repeating whatever she hears on the news channel and has gone quiet about the same Epstein files she would not stop talking about. Story 62. The Make America Great Again type in my circle and network are basically saying anyone who hurt women and children via the Epstein situation, including Donald Trump, deserves punishment. They just want to see the evidence, and most are saying they want everything the government has released with only the names of the victims redacted. This seems fair because it is obviously becoming political. Therefore, more transparency is better. Story 63. My friend said he does not want to talk about politics anymore, and I think it is pathetic. Rather than admit he was wrong and voted for a con man, he does not want to talk about it. Story 64. I would not know. I cut Donald Trump supporting friends and family members out of my life 9 years ago and have not looked back. I have not missed a single one of them either. Story 65. They are purposefully ignorant, if not outright complicit in the nonsense going on. Does anyone else feel like directly associating them with every action we warned about in real time might help them understand? I do not know anymore, but Donald Trump is imploding and we need to think about what is next if we are going to last another 30 years. Story 66. It is wild how every time Jeffrey Epstein's name comes up, people suddenly go from lock them all up to, well, we do not really know the whole story, faster than you can say emails. I have heard that before, the same dance, different scandal. Story 67. My father just changes the subject. My mother claims that she does not want to talk about politics. If that fails, my father goes back to saying he does not trust Kamala. Story 68. Who? I did not hear anything about that. You never know anymore. One news source says one thing, another says something else. I do not believe any of it anymore. Story 69. The majority of my coworkers support Donald Trump. They are in denial and are defending him. Yesterday, one of them got up and was ecstatic about the video Donald Trump released about Barack Obama being arrested. He yelled, "I love it. I love it, yes." The other men just laughed and nodded their heads in agreement. Story 70. They are just repeating whatever the latest Make America Great Again talking points are. The files do not exist. It is all a Democratic hoax. Barack Obama is on the list. Barack Obama created the list. The Clintons are on the list. The Clintons created the list. Donald Trump barely knew Jeffrey Epstein. Something about the mainstream media. Donald Trump is being unfairly targeted again. Story 71. I do not care how they feel. They are no longer my friends or family, so we do not talk at all and never will again. I do not interact with Nazis. Story 72. My Bible thumper father-in-law said, he is doing what we want him to do, closing the border and helping the economy. I will not judge him for what he does behind closed doors. Then he quoted a biblical king who had a man murdered but still did what God told him to do. I wish I were kidding. Story 73. They are saying all the Democrats will be taken out too. They should not release them. It will cause too much chaos. I say let the chaos begin. Story 74. One of the most extreme supporters of Donald Trump I know went from constantly posting aggressive pro-Donald Trump and anti-immigrant memes to stopping the weekend this all started. It is like he suddenly discovered he has grandchildren, dogs, and enjoys fishing. The change has been drastic, but I will take it. Story 75. They are not. They have been ignoring anything related to politics, the economy, the Constitution, human rights, or any other discussion beyond their small personal lives since Donald Trump was elected. They simply do not want to talk about politics anymore all of a sudden. Story 76. For me, They just say that Donald Trump is playing five-dimensional chess. What does five-dimensional chess even mean? Professional chess players do not understand what that means. Story 77. I had some, but cut ties because of what Donald Trump brought out of them. It is crazy to see what has been hidden inside someone for so long. However, I do know that they still support him strongly even though they know about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They will continue to do so because of his policies. Uneducated and hateful people are the worst. Story 78. My family believes Donald Trump. They think it is a Democratic hoax. I try to provide facts and evidence, but any source I provide is either out to get Donald Trump or is fake news. It is exhausting. Story 79. They refuse to acknowledge it. However, to be honest, I do not engage much in those conversations since I usually end up in unsafe situations because of them. Story 80. Ignorance is one thing. Stupidity is another. Seeing what you want to see is another. This is a cult. Many are just plain brainwashed. He could commit a terrible act on television, and they would claim it was not happening. Story 81. They simply do not. I have not heard a sound. The issue is that they know no one will ask them about it either. It is too confrontational, and the family has already been torn apart. Story 82. They are furious and believe nothing that is being said. The current status is that they said the Federal Bureau of Investigation should review the hours of footage and compile a list to release the names. This would ensure the victims are not in harm's way. No one I know even remotely believes the nonsense on both sides of the aisle. In fact, I have not heard a real person even remotely dispute my stance on that. People want to know who was involved. There might not have been a black book per se, but they have evidence on hand and need to release it. Otherwise, the people could consider using a Freedom of Information Act request to force it. Story 83. Seeing the number of families and relationships the MAGA movement has destroyed is shocking. I had to call my grandparents to thank them for remaining true to themselves. That is one of the things I struggle to understand. I have lost people in my life who were once genuinely kind, good, and compassionate. I no longer recognize them. It is as if they have been replaced by an evil twin. Story 84. Fox is running with basically everything but Epstein, so many people probably do not even realize the situation. Story 85. One of their individuals thought the Barack Obama arrest video was real. It will be a bit embarrassing for them once they find that out. Story 86. I have a couple of family members who are supporters of Donald Trump, and honestly, most of them just ignore it. They either believe it is overblown, fake, or they immediately shift the focus to, what about Bill Clinton? Or what about Joe Biden's connections? It is not that they deny everything, but there is a general sense of distrust toward anything coming from mainstream media, so it is easy for them to dismiss or downplay uncomfortable stories. The bigger issue I have noticed is that everyone picks their version of the scandal to focus on, depending on their political bias. The Epstein case is like a Rorschach test for political outrage. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people on both sides do not really want to process the full weight of the Epstein case because it implicates people across the entire political and financial elite. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.